Welcome back to All Things Baseball Podcast. I am your host, John, and we're here at episode 25. My co-host,
Johnny.
Yes, so we're here to take a deeper dive into the scouting series that we started earlier this year. We're back into Alabama with a little bit of a deeper dive and some great high school prospects, some sleepers. What do you think?
Yeah, no, it was a fun one. We had Mr. Skyler Stewart on
Yeah.
out from Spanish Fort. We talked a lot of the upcoming talent in the class 2025. A lot of sleepers out there that
we like.
we really like, and we talked about like what is this next draft class going to be like? Like, are they going to be just all big talent, like all big guys,
We talked a lot about that. Power seems to be where everybody's at, but we like to take a deeper dive, looking beyond the metrics. There's so many things that they look at for players, which is great. We like high IQ baseball players,
Definitely.
and we think that that if you're exhibiting that type of a ability, then it helps you get to that next level more so than maybe just the raw athletic talent.
Definitely, yeah. I think it is interesting. Each different draft class has a unique, I don't know, something unique about them that I think, it's almost like it has their mark. Like
For sure. There's always somebody in there, or a few guys that you go, whoa, this is intriguing.
Yeah.
Like this person has come from nowhere, or this person has been the number one guy for a while. Like there's always something to look at and say, wow, look at what this class is doing. So I like that aspect.
And Skyler did a great job of breaking down a lot of the guys and seeing what kind of upside they had. He gave a lot of great takes, I thought.
He did. Jack on a previous scouting series podcast mentioned, he said, with all the metrics that you have, it's like you can become somewhat of an expert in scouting players if you really dive deep into, you may not teach baseball, you may not be a baseball player, but if you really look at all the things, all the tools, all the metrics that they provide, there's a lot to learn about these prospects and how and where they might fit into the highest level of baseball.
Definitely. Yeah, I could definitely see that. Yeah. But with that, let's get into it with Skyler Stewart. And welcome back. And with us, we have Skyler Stewart, hailing from Spanish Fort, Alabama. Welcome, Skyler. We really appreciate you having you on, and we're going to dive into some of these guys we've researched, and you've also researched as well, the top prospects in Alabama.
Hey guys, how are we doing? Yep, absolutely. I've been doing my research on these guys. I'm ready to get into it, man. Thank you guys for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, good deal. So we wanted to start with maybe the top prospects in the state of Alabama, and then we'll break off into maybe the north and southern regions, and then some sleepers. So the first one up, really, to me, that kind of jumps out is what, Caleb Barnett? Is that the one that everybody's talking about?
Yes, sir.
So he's from Mountain Brook High School. He's 6'6", like 210, 215, whoever you talk about. I mean, he's got tremendous size and power, which all the scouts seem to love the size and power. He moves well. He's athletic. What else? Skyler, what did you think about this guy when you were researching him?
I thought he was very impressive. The size and the ability to move and make the throws to first. He played through injury in the playoffs, and even as just a designated hitter, was drawing intentional walks the entirety of their winner go home game. The guy's a gamer. He's going to help that Alabama team out a lot, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, we did notice that he's committed to Alabama, and he's ranked very high here, and he's ranked nationally too. I don't remember what his national rank was, but he was ranked pretty high.
I think it was 30. He's in the top 30.
Yeah, he's definitely in the top 30. So very impressive guy. I think that Alabama has some of the top players of the state for committed. I don't know how many they'll keep once the Major League Draft comes, but that'll be interesting. But we liked him. I saw some video on him, and I thought that he moved really well. He's tall, but he's pretty rangy, pretty athletic. His 60 time was pretty good. His 10-yard splits were good, which means he has some pretty good quickness. He's certainly athletic. Is the power just jumps out at you.
Yeah,
You know,
and one thing that I thought was really impressive is that yes, he's like you mentioned 6'5", 6'6", but he doesn't struggle to get the bat through the zone at all. He's very no wasted movement, and when you're that height, it's important to not be taking any extra time to get the bat through the zone. And he does a really great job of doing that on an upward trajectory and getting the ball out of the ballpark.
it's a good point. Being 6'6", that's a good point.
And then with a 100-mile exit velocity, like
That's crazy.
yeah, I was at the All American Classic. It says here at about 109, which is kind of ridiculous because some of the major league guys don't even get to that point. They're sitting maybe low 100s, high 90s. This guy's already averaging about 100 to 101, and yeah, that's pretty impressive. It says also here he at the National he homered in the game, and apparently he puts on a batting practice show, which is I think batting practice, like putting on a show for that, it can be kind of flashy sometimes, but if you can do it, it might look kind of impressive to the scouts. If you're able to, have that easy power.
No, absolutely.
And that's a constant theme that we see in the scouting places. The thing that I notice is everybody gravitates towards the power, but I want our podcast to really dig into like what makes this guy a major league prospect.
Right.
Power is the thing. Because if I was 6'6" and 220 pounds and I was 18 and I worked on my swing and I had a good batting practice home run derby swing, I probably would get some looks, but to hit at the next level is really important, and I think that's why you really got to dig in and see these guys and how they, like you said, how they do under pressure and if they're gamers. And so I love that point that you made. The next guy up is Eric Hines. He's an interesting one, another power guy. They have him in the outfield. He runs a good 60, but I watched some of it. I'm not here to knock any prospect, but I watched him in some of his movements. He's definitely a corner guy at the highest levels. I don't see him as a center fielder just because he's fast, but he's a little bulky. But the power is even more impressive than Caleb's in terms of just the exit velocity. Skyler, what do you notice about this guy?
I'd like to comp it to. I think Tyler O'Neill would be a really good comp, just because he's fast. Maybe he's not necessarily built for center, but he'd be an excellent above-average corner outfielder. Then you mentioned the power. You've seen it out of Tyler O'Neill, and I think that would be who I would really compare that to. But I think that he's a really well-rounded player, excellent athlete, three-sport athlete, football, baseball, basketball, excellent in all of them. I think that the athleticism will translate, but like you said, I think corner outfield's probably the best spot. But the power is undeniable.
Yeah, what did I see? His exit velocity was like 110. Like it was noticeably higher than any other prospect that I saw. And then I saw him hit just on the 2nd of this month, February 2nd, in some sort of a showcase. I think that they have these showcases. PBR puts on these showcases, and I think this one was maybe in South Alabama. But anyway, the swing, he looks like a man out there for sure. I've never seen a swing on a high school player quite like him. And Caleb are very, very impressive. But this guy, his exit velocity is even more impressive. His arm, is good. He definitely has the velocity. But I want to see him develop. He'll definitely be drafted pretty high, probably in the first few rounds, I would think, maybe 5. But it might be something where he goes, I'm going to go to Alabama and develop and try to become a higher draft pick.
Right. Is he uncommitted still, or did he commit?
He just committed to Alabama.
Alabama, yep.
So that's
Okay.
very new.
Just did. Okay.
I saw it on the PBR site. So it said uncommitted earlier, but it looked like he just committed to Alabama.
114 mile hour.
114? Wow.
Wow. Man, you can't deny that.
Yeah. So he stands out. Another guy we liked was Mikhail Holden, who's a third baseman and a right-handed pitcher from Thompson. This is a guy that he really stands out as well. And you mentioned offline about the dual threat. So why don't you talk a little bit about that, Scott?
Yeah, him being the two-way, he hit a walk-off grand slam to send them to the Elite Eight and the 7A playoffs. But no, I think people are quick to talk about the bat, but I think you should be just as quick to talk about the arm. Topping out around 93, 92, 93, with a little bit of a sink to it. Has a secondary of the 12-6 kind of look to it. Smooth delivery with both pitches. I think if he can add maybe one more while he's at Alabama, I think he could become a real threat on the mound. I am. I don't know if you could necessarily. I don't know which one I would necessarily pick. If you asked me which one do you think he should stick with, I think he's equally as capable to produce at both.
Well,
You
he is in high school and college.
Mm-hmm.
My question to you is, if you did have to pick one, where do you think, if he has a shot at the major leagues or playing professionally, where do you think that he has a little bit of an edge at the higher levels?
I think that pitching would be the right move. I think the delivery is really fluid, and he doesn't. You can't really tell. He's not tipping any pitches or anything like that. I'm guessing just what's coming out of his hand, just like anybody else is. I think that if he adds, like I said, adding a third, maybe fourth pitch could be pretty key in him moving up. I also like the odds of more pitchers on the roster in the major leagues. I like his chances of just being able to get there and have some success. Whether that be as a reliever or a starter. I think he could. I would end up going with pitching though.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Johnny, why don't you introduce us to Steele Hall?
We got Steele Hall next. He comes out of Hewitt-Trussville, Alabama. Standing at 5'11", 175 pounds. He's been playing with Team XL Blue Wave. He is committed to the University of Tennessee. And yeah, we talked a little bit about him off air. Runs a 6'4", 360. A little bit of Steele Hall.
A 1.5 10-yard dash. Now a split, and the reason why I like that is you want to know if a guy can stay at shortstop.
Yep.
That's super quick.
Yep. The burst is all there.
Yeah. So speed is obviously his calling card. But Stewart, what did you, Skyler? What did you see? I'll call you Stewart. We're just going to call you Skyler Stewart or Skyler or Stewart. No, I'm just kidding.
Anything works. Quick hands.
So what did you like about him?
Quick hands, athletic. Gap to gap power. Sprays it. There's pretty much. I mean, like you were mentioning earlier, just because somebody isn't hitting it to the moon every single time they're at bat, that doesn't mean they're not giving you an extremely quality at bat. Getting on base is obviously the most important part, and he seems to do a great job with that, and then also manages to fly around in the infield. He can be wherever he needs to be. The burst is there, the speed is there, the arm is there. Plus arm, in my opinion. Think that he can. But I don't see a struggle for him in the field, and then at the plate, as long as he continues to take quality at bats, I think that the sky's the limit for that guy.
I liked his swing for sure, and like you said, the arm is there. He throws 93 across the infield at 5'11", and I think he's probably 185, something like that, 180.
Baseball report,
and he's just like a lot of kids in high school. He's just going to get bigger and stronger. So there's a lot to like about him. The speed, the quickness, the glove is very flashy, like you said. He gets on base. The swing plays, I think, at higher levels. I like to look and analyze swings and say, okay, is this a phenomenal high school swing, or does it, or can it play at the highest levels? Because, in high school, they're averaging 83, 84 miles an hour in the 7A programs. And in college, it'll be 88, now 89, 90. And then in the pros, it'll be an average fastball of 95 up to 105. So, you want to be able to project a guy and say, this guy can handle, he just has an elite, approach and swing. So I like him a lot too. I think he's going to be someone that's, electric. I'm not sure where he'll go draft wise. I think he may, if he gets drafted, it'll be in the later rounds, mid to later rounds. But I think it's probably he'll benefit from going to Tennessee and playing SEC baseball.
I think Tennessee's the perfect fit for him. Johnny and I were talking about that. He just embodies Tennessee baseball. They're in infield like that. He is going to fit and slide in just fine, just perfect.
Fast play, yeah, I get that. And he's a little bit different from the other guys we just previously mentioned. with Caleb and Eric Hines, who are about 6'3" and between 6'3" and 6'6", and he's 5'11", and he still produces close to about
Yeah.
100 exit velocity, which is very impressive to do, and more room to grow. So I think his upside is definitely, you can see more room to grow. And not saying the other guys are gonna, not grow either, which is
Right.
crazy to say, being that they're only 17, 18 years old. But yeah, I think that could be a really good fit.
One thing that you had mentioned earlier, that if you don't mind me circling back on, you had mentioned when you're analyzing the swings. Did you get to look at Mikhail Holden's swing a whole lot? I thought it was excellent. I know I
Yeah,
just said I know I just said I'd take him as a pitcher, but I mean I was very impressed with his swing. Short, the leg kick isn't too big. Real balanced. Hands are through the zone quick. I think he has an excellent swing, which
yeah, I
is
did take a look at it. When I look at a player with an elite swing or someone that I think can take it to the next level, I look at where I think their holes are because everybody has something.
yes, sir.
I saw a player. We'll talk about it in a minute. That just was a great high ball hitter, and that's hard to do. A lot of guys can drop the barrel on the low pitch and kind of golf one, but that high fastball, the high strike, is really tough. So I tend to look at, well, what are the players' weaknesses look like to me, and are they glaring or are they one of those things where I think he'll get through that. He'll have a solid approach. Like we always use the Joey Gallo example, right? Joey Gallo made the major leagues because he can hit the ball to the moon, and
Yep.
he has a great arm, and he's a really good defender. But
Yep.
it can't be just me that sees that Joey Gallo has huge holes in his swing, right? And
Yep.
so I look at it and go, okay, if you're a pitcher, this is how you pitch, Joey Gallo. So I kind of look at players and say, all right, besides the elite power or the elite running or the elite arm, can the swing play? And while nobody's paying me to scout for any of the major league teams, and not yet, you do tend to see these swings over and over again, and then some things stand out. So I like guys who, they load a certain way where it gives them a fraction longer to recognize the pitch. I like guys that that aren't too long of a swing because that doesn't play in the major leagues. Even if some guys, the power have long swings, but you can't be too long. And then, do they go around the ball? Are they steep? Things like that. So I would say he definitely has one.
Yeah.
Johnny's, before we get to our sleepers, we want to talk a little bit about PBR, right?
Yeah, Prep Baseball Report. They really helped us with this research, and I know you may have used them as well in your research. They have been great with giving us all these analytics and all these metrics of these players that we've been researching on. We just want to give a quick shout out to them.
Well, and Johnny says they helped us. They don't know who we are, but we went to their site and
they didn't help us.
They did help us
personally, but yes,
without knowing who we were. But they're just the best. I mean, we got their plus package, and Austin Sharp was someone that Johnny played against here in Huntsville in high school.
Right.
Shout out to Austin. He does a phenomenal job with PBR Alabama, showcasing players, talking about them, giving them, obviously the ability to really shine and show who they are. And they have all the metrics on their site. I mean, they have something called rotational. What was it called again?
Rotational power or rotational.
What was that one?
Not exit velocity, but it's
some sort of a rotational G, it's like a G-force thing of your rotational
acceleration.
Rotational acceleration. Okay, so obviously
interesting.
But I'm like, okay, I've never heard a scout say, wow, this guy has tremendous rotational acceleration. I mean, I'm sure it's measurable, but they have everything is my point. So they have the 10-yard splits. They have the standard stuff, the pop times, the 60-yard stuff, the arms from the outfield and the infield, the pop, the exit velocities and the hand speed, the bat speed, all that. They have all that and more. And when you really dig in, then they have this thing called visual edge, which is like 9 different categories of your your eyes, how to recognize a pitch, the depth of the reaction to the pitch. Like they have, and I'm just giving you a few, but they have like 9 categories, and then they give you a score. So like an 85 is like elite major league. But it's one of the newer waves of testing kids, and I think it's important to know if someone is deficient in one of the new metrics because
Right.
it could show up later on. They might dominate again in high school, but it may show up. So we love PBR. Austin Sharp and his dad, David Sharp, who was coached Huntsville here in Huntsville High. They do a phenomenal job of really showcasing players and giving them the platform, and the showcases really worth the money, I think. Not all the showcases are from some of the
Right.
other organizations. We love Perfect Game too, but PBR Alabama is the best. So we wanted to give them a shout out because we're where we do our most of our research and see videos.
Yeah.
So what we like to do here is anybody can just spit out, statistics, but that's why we're talking to you about which do you think a guy will be, a pitcher or a hitter at the highest levels. We
Right.
want to, what we think and give it back to the viewers and say, yeah, we can all spit out reports. You probably don't have the time, Mr. Viewer or Mrs. Viewer, but we'll give you that. But we'll also give you a little bit of, hey, this might give them a little bit of trouble, down
Right.
the, without knocking any prospects. But with that in mind, we want to jump into the southern part of this state. Johnny, well, we talked about a little bit about some of the players from Mountain Brook, American Christian Academy, Thompson, Spanish Fort, Hoover, Hewitt, Trustville, Huntsville. Like, there's some great baseball
Yeah.
played in this state, and a lot of it is in the southern part of the state. So tell us who you like.
Yeah. Closest college to me is South Alabama. They put countless people in the MLB, from Juan Pierre, David Freese, Brendan Donovan now with the Cardinals, who sounds like your kind of player in terms of the high contact, defensive versatility, and bringing value to a baseball team. It seems like he's exactly who you would want. But yeah, no, a couple guys for them this year that I think can make a good impact out of high school. Damian Gatson, center fielder, left-hander, excellent speed, throws and hits left-handed, above average speed, above average contact, gets bat through the zone really well, can hit for pop, dual threat quarterback at Mobile Christian High School, two-sport athlete, so the athleticism is obviously there. Should be coming into South this year, I believe, graduating in 2025, and should be ready to rock and roll with them. I like him he was at a Mobile Christian, so he's hometown, staying in town. I believe he's one of the top rated players, or one of the more highly rated players in terms of the southern part of the state. And then a couple other guys for South this year that I really like. Their catching situation is one to really keep an eye on. They're going to have 3 or 4 guys that are kind of battling. One guy just transferred in from Pensacola State. His name's Mike Young. He hits more of a hit first kind of guy. I think he could potentially end up taking that job at South. It's kind of an open position. The guy who ran it last year hit about 240, and so they're looking to beef up that lineup with him. And then another guy coming over from Pensacola State as well that could help boost South, that I think could be a real big addition, is Pensacola State outfielder John Smith III. He was Pensacola State's best hitter last year. Transferred over to South, hit about a 300 with about a 450 OBP. He should be plug and play at South, I would think, and should be putting up very good numbers for them. So you should see their offense take kind of a step forward this year for their offense as a whole.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Excellent. We'll have to keep an eye on those guys, and when we have you back on, we'll have the opportunity to see how some of these guys do. See if there's anybody else that piques your curiosity after seeing the high school season, get underway in the next week or two.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, you're going to want to keep an eye on Damian. Like when he gets to South, he's going to be a problem. The swing is excellent. I think that he's for sure. I think he's going to stick in center as well. I know that we had kind of talked about that. I think he really does have the athleticism and the tools to stick in center.
Right.
You can see his routes and things like that. He looks good. He looks clean, things like that. And so I think that he's going to end up sticking in center field for USA.
Awesome. Yeah.
Excellent.
We'll definitely keep an eye out for him. Switching over to a catching prospect we really liked, kind of a sleeper, is Zachary Johnson.
Well, he's our sleeper to get drafted. I think he's
Yeah.
on out. Like, he's pretty well known in North Alabama, but he's definitely a sleeper. We think he's going to get drafted, right?
I think like sub 1.9 shows a sub 1.9, easy fluid power, just electric right off the bat. And yeah, I mean, what is he standing at? Do you remember?
He's 6'1" now. He was 5'11" as I think a junior this year. He's 6'1". He's like 185 to maybe approaching 200. He just seems, every time I see a video of him, he seems to get thicker, bigger. But yeah, like Johnny said, he's in the 1.8s. What was his catcher velocity? 81, right?
81, yeah.
81 miles per hour catcher
Got
velocity.
him down there.
And his transfer is good. I think he could definitely clean up his lower half, like maybe move his hips a little bit earlier to get into throwing position. But his transfer, with his hands are really good. And then just the power arm. He's very tough, plays hockey, football. He's a fun kid too to listen to. He's well spoken. I've watched a couple of interviews with him. I one on PBR and Lake Point Media or Lake Point Sports. So I really liked what I heard from him, and he's confident. I mean, he's a confident player. Just to give you an idea, also, I would say that he's the guy that I was mentioning about. Like, I saw him hit. His best highlight hits were all high fastballs. He loves the high fastball. Now, he could see this video, call me up and say, Mangini, I hate the high fastball, but I doubt it because all the highlights I saw was he's like taking the high fastball and taking it deep. So me, that stands out because that's hard to do.
Yeah.
High fastball, deep.
Yeah.
So it tells me that he changed his load a little bit, but he definitely he was doing a toe tap when he hit this high fastball off the left center field wall, which is just a missile that I saw. But he's got a hand trigger that I like, and it gives him a little bit of extra time, kind of like a Mookie Betts hand trigger.
Right.
So I kind of like, right. So I kind of like him. And then who else do we like?
We got our local native, hailing from Grissom, is Charlie Cassingham, and he's a middle infielder.
Charlie's 5'8", about 160, 155, 160. So really under the radar nationally, but well known in Alabama.
Okay.
And we are fortunate. We love him. We know him. But more importantly, we just see him at the field and at the cage all the time. He's like a gym rat, which you would call that. Charlie's he's fast. He runs a 6.8 60. His splits for the 10 are like a 1.56 now. So he's really good there. He's at shortstop, but to be honest with you, I think he can play. I mean, he can play anywhere. He's got great hands. His left-handed swing. Why don't you talk about that?
Lefty righty. Plays shortstop, catcher. Runs about a 6'8", 6'8", 60. So he's versatile. He can play a lot of different positions. Really smooth swing. Being that he is 5'7", 5'8", he can drive the ball still and with authority. Gets around the bases quick. And you mentioned that story where he hit one out and he was at second base and it hadn't even gone out yet.
Yeah. So he hit a home run in, I think, the umpires clinic, and it was online just recently and in the preseason. He was almost at second base before he broke into his home run jog. So he busts it out of the box.
And that's all you can ask for.
Yeah, he's not pimping any hits.
Also going to USA.
So you'll like him on that squad. You can follow him closely.
They should have a good squad this year.
I'll tell you a quick story about Charlie. So I helped coach the freshman team at Grissom with Garrett Martz and I can't remember the other guy's name. He was the head coach.
Sorry.
But he was a seventh grader who made the team playing freshman ball. Okay. And so one day, Coach Talley, who was coaching the team, he had these books for the guys, and you had to kind of chart he had the Rapsodo, and he had all these different,
Right.
metrics. And so the players had to chart their exit velocities and different
Right.
things. And so the varsity had just left. This was in a January, going back. He's a senior now, so this is going back several years ago. He was a seventh grader. And so the machine was already set on like varsity level pitching. It was about 34 degrees. It was at 6:30 at night that they let the freshmen spend an hour hitting with me and Coach Martz, and I'll remember his name. And nobody could touch the machine. None of the freshmen, none of the ninth graders, none of the eighth graders. And then this little seventh grader comes up. And again, it's set for varsity level because they wanted to keep it there. The coach
Right.
wanted to see how they would do. It's about 34 degrees. And he's just hitting missiles back to the back of the net off this machine. The only one who's even touching the ball, but he's also hitting missiles. So I knew that they had taken him for a reason. You don't take seventh graders on a high school team unless
Right.
there's a. Well, I remember telling Tally at the time, I'm like, the best swing in your program is Charlie Cassingham. And that's no disrespect to
Anybody else?
some of the players that were in the program at the time. Charlie's swing was elite at an early age. And
Yeah.
and so it wasn't like I was like in a news bulletin, he's got a great swing. I mean, anybody who knows the swing could see it.
Yeah.
And I coached the team. I mean, he did really well. I mean, he was one of our top players as a seventh grader, and then he went on to obviously start playing varsity at an early age. I think eighth grade, ninth grade, he got some at bats, and then he started to start 10th grade, 11th grade, and then of course this year he's a senior. So we love him. We know that he works hard. We know that he's a humble person. We know that he helps the younger players. We know that he's a good team leader because we're around him all the time.
Right.
And see, exactly what he is. I think that he's ranked like 500th nationally, and in the state of Alabama, I think he's maybe he's in the top 15, 20. So they know him here, but he's getting no love nationally. So he should get it. I mean, if I'm a major league team, I would draft him in the mid to late rounds because you're getting a kid who's swing. Now, I'll tell you what I love about his swing. He coils around his back hip. Okay.
Okay.
And he has a simple swing, but he does this thing with his hips where he coils. It gives him a fraction more time to make a high quality swing. So any hitting instructor, anybody who follows hitting knows that if you have just a fraction longer to make a better decision, you'll make a better swing.
Right.
Making a better decision on when to swing. And he has that. And a lot of guys, they just load back and then go forward. And he around that hip. If you go to his site on PBR, there's a slow motion swing of his that illustrates this. So I'm sorry there's been a lot of people talking about that. But
I think he's a fascinating prospect. I think that South does a really good job at retaining the talent within the state and around the area. Obviously, as the two guys that I mentioned earlier from Pensacola State that I think will be big additions for them this year. That guys need to keep their eyes on. But yeah, South does a really good job.
Yeah, and we're pumped for him and all the guys going to South as well. But with that, we wanted to wrap up and want to hear any last closing guys that you think we might have missed or anybody we should take a look at.
I think Auburn's catching situation could be fun this year. They got a guy out of Hoover who's going to be splitting time with. They've got two guys who are going to be splitting time, and one's out of Hoover, and he transferred in, and the other one is Lucas Steele, and the other is Ike Irish, I believe. They should be. Ike was there last year. I think they're going to. Lucas Steele won Southern Conference Player of the Year at Samford, coming from where Sonny came from, who also ended up at Auburn and had an excellent career at Auburn. But yeah, I think Auburn's catching situation, and they have a lefty named Cade Fisher that I think is going to get looked at too. Was one of the top lefty arms out of the state of Georgia in 2022. Committed to Florida. Had a really good freshman year at Florida. Had a 3.10 over about 40, 50 innings. Pitched in the World Series, and as you know, nothing is better than in-game experience being a gamer. And then had a rough sophomore year. Hopped in the portal, and now Cade Fisher is at Auburn, and Auburn had to beat out LSU and Wake Forest. So, I mean, these, obviously this guy's got the juice if those guys are looking at him. But yeah, I think that their pitching staff should be revamped this year as well. But yeah, that was just a couple of the other guys that I kind of peeked by and saw.
That's awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely keep an eye out for them as well. And yeah, I think we wrapped there with some of the top prospects from Alabama. We really appreciate the research. But before we close, if anybody player that is looking to be scouted, you can reach out to us at All Things Baseball Podcast on Instagram or email us at allthingsbaseballpodcast@gmail.com. And also, before we go to all of our listeners, you get 10% off at Haystack Sports by using the promo code PBSR15 at checkout. Just go to haystacksports.com and you can get all the scouting tools on there and create a professional profile for all the coaches to see. And you get a lot of amazing tools. All the college coaches right there on the site.
Yeah, that's the deal you don't want to miss. I mean, if you're looking to get scouted, it gives you access to 54,000 coaches, and you get kind of pinged back when they've looked at your profile or if they looked at a video, and you kind of it's a lot less expensive than the other ones, and you can cancel at any time, so they don't lock you in for huge amounts. So we like them. But with that, we want to thank you, and don't forget
Got the merch. We got the shirts.
we got to get
Honestly,
our special guests. Big Cardinals fan. We got to get him.
Huge.
Yeah, we got to get him some all things baseball gear, and we appreciate it.
Thank you guys for having me, man. I had a blast. There's nothing better than talking shop, man. I love it.